Hello, welcome to the DevOps Summit in Canada. Today, I'm Manuel, by the way. We will talk about what I did in terms of making compliant with Gitops and CDEvents. The title is a question mark. By the way, really, did we really do that? Yes, we did. Just a little bit about myself. So I'm using, as you see, oh my God, once more, software is eating the world. Just because in the top center company ops where I've been working with Mark Andreessen, the guy who said software is eating the world for uh, long time ago. So long story short, I've been working in the DevOps and DevSecOps industry for some time now, making a lot of nice companies. Recently, I've been working for DevOps Institute as an ambassador and CD Foundation as a community builder. You have my LinkedIn profile on the bottom left. And we will start with a little bit of history before going into the technical aspects and the detailed aspects. So, well, we will focus today on the financial services because we did that project in the financial services. It may be used in a lot of other verticals, but if we take the financial services world over the last 25 years, roughly, we've gone through a lot of different technologies in terms of applications, a lot of different infrastructure. I will not go into all that description because we all know that. But there was a lot of changes, basically a lot of changes that made me switch from some monolithic approach to a very modular approach. You probably all know that kind of pictures, but it's the reality today. So uh, if I try to make some stages, some waves, okay, in that drawing, on what was the different DevOps technologies, or what was before DevOps and was brought to DevOps. We have today four waves from the 60s, 70s, where everything was focused on the languages. Then came some kind of organization, the case tools, where we were constructing software systems and monitoring the systems. Then 20, 30 years ago came the methods, the discipline, agile, ITIL, CMM, capability maturity model, for those who remember, with in mind the reusability, the quality, and the ease of operation, which led quite normally to DevOps, where Dev and Ops are working together. This is the current wave, active for the last 10 years or so. And we are entering a new wave very soon, something like I've lost the video. Okay, I'm sorry for that. And what is interesting in that wave is that the deployment frequency has changed. Roughly 10 years ago, a little bit less than 10 years ago, 2015 is the breaking point where the deployment frequency increased a lot and justified the use of such methods, such processes, such organizations to make more flexible the software delivery. So if I go through the maturation of the DevOps tooling now, with the enterprise scalability at the bottom, and on the left hand side, the release automation efficiency, efficacy. if we go once more through these waves, the first generation was job-based. I had some scripts, very basic, and I was building everything myself. Switching to the second generation, where I try to organize, to connect the dots, to connect the scripts, so that I could build some kind of logical suite of stages, a pipeline. So job-based script, version control system, and pipeline, stages, some environment, scripted environment most of the time, that allowed me to implement some best practices, wrap what I had, the script. Even if I had a poor knowledge of the script, I was able to wrap them and have a basis for the automation. And at the level of security, access controls, very basic, but open to the future. The future was, at that time, the prescriptive. I'm adding things. I add the things I do my way. Do it your way. So adding the QA, adding the testing, adding everything that was supposed to be included in my software delivery supply chain. It was probably the first time I heard that term. So where I had my stages and environment, I added all the things, CI, obviously, and here we are talking more about Hudson than Jenkins, for those who remember the former name of Jenkins. So adding things to new best practices, the fidelity and the inventory. I know what I have and where. I can repeat the same activities. Once more, that notion of inventory, and very open to adding things that are not strictly, that were not at the time strictly attached to the software delivery. I'm talking about the change management for leveraging activities. I'm talking about requirement management, the feedback loop, connecting the test result with requirement. Know that we bring some features to production and not some executables or some artifacts. I know what is inside. And obviously, the opportunity to add even more security levels for managing the cycle, but also inside of the software cycle. So typically the security scans, the different security checks, and the approvals. So typically in the financial services, we cannot not think about the segregation of duties, which is also an approval type, which is very important. So last but not least, step from prescriptive to configurable. What does it mean? Focus on the business. So while I had a system that was built on top of what was before, on top of what was before, and so on, I now have some purpose-built tools for release automation. Most of them model-based, because I can model my environments, my applications, my release process, my approvals, and create templates, create models that I can reuse. Okay, so where I was adding the different tools on my supply chain, I now have a proper DevOps platform that brings all the activities from the beginning, so the requirements or just out of the requirements, until I bring the application to production. And this is where we will focus. I'm not forgetting my subject, Gitops, CDEvents, to make sure that we are compliant. The compliance is a corollary of the audit trail. And with the proper DevOps platform that orchestrates everything, I have my audit trail. So on the approval process, on the automated approval for the security and regulation compliance. And I have all the data that are stored, so I can do reporting, dashboarding, what I want, and be open to self-service, to make sure that I have the consistency of the configurations. Well, long story short, job-based, pipeline-based, prescriptive, and configurable, based on different tools, different levels of automation I'm adding to go into what I'm looking for. Automate and prove the compliance for today. And well, the challenges, amongst the challenges of the financial services, where today we will focus on the compliance, even on the security of the compliance, we will see, but we have other ones. Okay, we could do a presentation on each of them. Today we will focus on this one. What is the problem? The problem is that at least where we found that the solution I'm talking about could be applied, we had problem on the organizational structure, because banks are eating each other. Okay, they acquire each other, so they have several choices, several tool sets, several cloud providers, even some of them have some local data centers. We still have, I mean, we are in, I come from Europe, and we have in the center of Europe a country called Switzerland that everybody knows, that is very, very, very prescriptive on the localization of data. So most of the big banks that operate in Europe still have local data centers for Switzerland. So we have different organizations, but the release team can be local, the choice of hardware can be local, the licenses, the software tools can be local, and the processes can be local. So I'm putting on the bottom right here that wall of confusion that everybody knows. By the way, I thought 25 years ago, when I started to use that wall of confusion between dev and ops, I was saying we will use that for 2 years, 3 years, and after that something will come up. And we still, to promote DevOps, to promote ways of working, to promote processes, we are still using that GIF that I put as a background here, my wall of confusion. I want change on the left and I want stability on the right. So the challenge is, I will not go into reading all that slide, but we are spending money that we should not. So unnecessary spendings. We lack some visibility and some controls on what we are doing around that wall of confusion, with different teams that are not aligned on the same ways of working. We, as a consequence, have a low morale for the people and a low quality for the code. At the end of the day, business losses, which is not acceptable if you want to remain competitive in an industry. So basically, all of this translates into figures. Okay, this is an example of a quite simple calculation, or where do we lose money and how much money do we believe that we lose because we're not doing things right. We're not doing the right processes. We're not using the right tooling. When we don't have the right solution to bring the business forward and to remain competitive. So we need something new, okay? A new approach that has some characteristics. I could remain on the first line, compliance audit. This is where I will focus right now. But all the rest is some kind of corollary. I want more quality. I want a better morale for the employees. I want some flexibility, and I want visibility and control. All of this, we will see that we included that in our focus compliance. Last but not least, the impact, some reductions in terms of money and some reductions in terms of return on investment, not reduction, return on investment, ROI. We've calculated here, implementing such a solution for the compliance, what was the return on investment? The breaking point here was 5 months, which is in the life of a project, not very long. In the life of a company, it's nothing, literally nothing. 5 months to get the return on investment for that very solution based on automation and Gitops and CDEvents. So I dared, during that title, what were the brilliant ideas to get there? Brilliant ideas, it's included in the title. So CDEvents and Gitops. What is CDEvents? For those who were not exposed to CDEvents, it's quite simple. The principles is to adopt the continuous delivery with flexibility to incorporate whatever tooling best suits to your specific environment, requirements. Sorry. And the second one, it's a common specification for continuous delivery events, CDEvents, enabling the interoperability in the complete software production ecosystem. So I have my software supply chain, my delivery pipeline, and using the notion of events, that pipeline will know what happens in other parts of my supply chain, to put all that together and to, at the end of the day, make sure that when I make the decision, or where the process makes automatically the decision of sending a release into production, it is compliant, whatever it means, okay, for that very technology. So CDEvents, you can find that on the GitHub documentation of CDEvents. Basically, it's quite simple. Just imagine you have different systems, A and B, that make up a product. Okay, during the life of building system A or building system B, you will have several things that happen in terms of source control, in terms of scanning, in terms of, well, everything that is about observability or audit trail. Each time something happens, there is an event. So something is fired somewhere to make other systems or other processes aware that that very thing has happened. I take just an example. I did the scan, the SAST scan. So my SAST scan has returned some results. I have two events. The first one, the SAST scan has happened. The second one, here are the results. They are available somewhere. So I can grab them and make an evaluation against some thresholds for the vulnerabilities, for example. Another representation that I took from IBM, the idea is, well, it's still the same. So you see on the top, I have my SCM, my build test sign, my artifact repo, my deployment, and each time something happens, I have an event, CDEvent, that is sent somewhere. And I have a broker, and this is the idea we have taken. We have taken that broker as my software delivery pipeline. So my broker, after that, makes available to view, to store, to notify, to generate metrics, to do whatever is interesting for moving forward in the cycle. GitOps. Now, the GitOps principles, that's quite simple. You probably all know GitOps. GitOps is the idea to take the best practices, the DevOps best practices that are used for application deployment into the infrastructure automation. So what does it mean? It means that you remember my waves, my different stages in the scalability of the DevOps tooling. If you go to the GitOps webpage, you have roughly the same. Okay, infrastructure automation and cloud operating maturity model, programmatic configuration management, infrastructure as code that a lot of people know. Terraform is an example. Into GitOps, what we have now. So GitOps, if I go to the GitHub webpage of GitOps, I have also some nice schema. GitOps in a nutshell, I automatically from Git, when something happens in the source code, I automatically trigger my pipeline that will perform CI/CD and bring and generate some results. So we took from GitOps these two principles. Okay, the first one is the source of truth. We need a source of truth for everything that happens, and we went a little bit further than the source of truth in the source code repository, because the source of truth is not only the source code, it's everything that helps me build a bill of material. This is another topic very important. You've all heard about the software bill of material, and we took the idea that the source of truth has to be the software bill of material. And the second one is automatically triggers a pipeline. So what does it mean? Okay, it means this is what we did with these principles. Take a pipeline on the top here with the gray background. Take a pipeline, whatever the name of the stages of the pipeline. It represents all the activities that will bring to delivering an application into production. You can break down the pipeline roughly in three main parts. Okay, if I start on the right hand side, maybe it's my right, so your right is there. If I start on the right hand side, you have the production, obviously. Then just before you have the pre-production, what will prepare to the production. This is where we will assess the compliance. Preparing to production means a lot of technical things, okay? But what was the focus of what we did? Make sure that we have the compliance stamp, that we comply to everything that is defined for that very application. It can change according to the technologies. It can change according to the business criticity. But we have a definition of what compliance is. So we will want to make sure that in pre-production, before going through that arrow between pre-production and production, that it is compliant. And on the left-hand side, the uncontrolled stages, okay? The uncontrolled stages that are, for me, everything that will happen before pre-production. So what did we do? Combine Gitops and CDEvents. The first thing that we did is, break down, okay, something called the execution phase, something called the validation phase. The validation is where I will assess compliance. The execution is where I will propose within my software delivery supply chain to perform the test for the different applications that decide to use my system. So what does it mean? GitOps, when something happens in the source code repository, GitOps will trigger automatically that pipeline. It will trigger the pipeline based on the parameter file. The parameter file will define what are the controls that I expect my pipeline to execute for me. And we will see how it will be executed. This is where CDEvents come in the picture. The parameter file, since we wanted a solution that is user-oriented, we also provide some templates for the parameter file. My typical application is customer-facing. It's a containerized application running on GK, and so on. So I have a SAS scan to do, a DAS scan to do, a container scan to do. It's not a mobile application, so no must, and so on and so on. So I have some templates. The typical application needs that level of compliance. Once I have triggered my pipeline, this pipeline will ask different other pipelines to come into the picture, to do some analysis. Do I have some FOSS components? I have to go through the FOSS analysis. I said I'm a containerized application. I want to run a SAS scan, and so on, the other scans. But not only the security, because I'm focusing on security on what I'm saying. But you can imagine the control of the data. We are on the financial services world. I was talking about specific regulation against countries. So management of the data, RGPD, and so on. Architecture. I may have some guidelines for the architecture in my company. So verify that architecture guideline, and so on and so on. So I have, in the example I'm giving, we were talking about 18 different type of controls. Security is only one of them. It's probably the most looked after, but only one of them. Once the controls have been running here, they have stored some values. They have stored some values, and they have fired an event saying, I have finished, so that the stored values can be sent into different repositories. I was a little bit saying the same thing before. We are in a company where things are pre-existing. Okay, we were not coming there 2-3 years ago saying we will start from scratch. We have some repositories. What are those repositories? Those repositories are the ITSM. We can have some information in ServiceNow or CA or Remedy or whatever the ITSM tool. I can have some information attached to my change. I have also a policy engine that tells me, for example, basic example, I want 0 critical vulnerabilities out of my SAS scan if I want to go to production. This is a policy. So I have a policy engine that also stores information out of these controls. And I have my software bill of material. I was talking about that. My software bill of material that puts together all the information that make up my software, but also that are the result of the different controls at a certain point in time. So all these repos contain information. I have generated some additional information. Everything will converge into, and with the events mechanism, will converge into the control validation, where I will have an engine that looks at all the compliance rules that I have to comply to and say, it's okay and it's not okay, and it's easy to automate. Okay, rules are the easiest thing to automate. Everybody does that at the university. We have a rule, we want to automate it, we just code. So controls validation here will produce an audit report, because it's very simple. I have the data, I have the rules, I can say yes or no, green or red. I give the stamp or I don't give the stamp, so that I can send the application into production, first, knowing that it's compliant and it's automated. Second, knowing how to prove it's compliant. This is my audit report. One click. Okay, if I have the right tool, I gather the information, and for any application running in production, I can right click, audit report, and I just bring it to the auditor saying that application is running in production because it has the stamp, and here is the content of the stamp. We had 0 vulnerabilities. We had 1 false positive, and you see the threshold is 5 for false positive, whatever. Okay, so I can prove in my audit report. If I go a little bit in details with some screenshots, okay? The screenshots I've done are with the tools we've been using. For those who know that tool, you will recognize it. This is not the moment to do some advertisements, but so the process is, the first one is my security pipeline. What was the way of thinking? I want to do CI/CD to be compliant, to build the bomb, to be secure, but it's not my responsibility in terms of project. It's not my skill. By the way, just a parenthesis, we are all talking about shift left. Okay, no, this is my left, so your left is there. Shift left. Shift left is nice, but shift left does not mean the developer becomes a security specialist, because the development team cannot do everything. There are some security specialists. It means that at the development stage and the more left as possible, I want to be able to use what have been defined by the security specialists, so that I can assess the security the more left as possible of my application. So we've created a security pipeline because the security is also phased. The idea is to say, if my SAS scan is not right, so I anticipate my policy engine. If my SAS scan produces a lot of critical vulnerabilities, there's no way to send the application to production, okay, or even to integration or delivery. I have to fix those vulnerabilities before. So it's a phased pipeline, a generic security pipeline with some different scans, SAST, DAST, FOSS, or whatever. The purpose here is not to go deep into the security pipeline, but to look at what do I do, for example, in development. In development, I have 3 different types of SAST. But if I go a little bit more in details, before entering that, I have to make sure this is one of the controls that the user is skilled to understand what it's doing in terms of security. So he's gone through the training. So one level of compliance of the user. And the second one, the exit gate, the thresholds. I anticipate my policy engine. I have to be compliant with the different SAST scans that I have done, that I do not have values that are outside of what is tolerated. Okay, so I implement those gates around the pipeline to make sure that in terms of security, as long as I progress, I will get the compliance at the end of the day. Same thing for a pre-prod deployment, for example. I make sure here, after the pre-prod deployment, that I have the correct results in terms of different scans. And let's go one step further, the processes. So the processes, it's my application delivery, okay, my software delivery pipeline. We've been seeing just before the security one. Here, this is the main one. Okay, I want to do CI/CD. I want to use the security checks provided by the other pipeline, the one that will inform me through the CDEvents mechanism. The one, basically, that pipeline is the one that is triggered by the Gitops mechanism. And how do I do to make sure that my CDEvents stuff works? I just synchronize the pipelines. Here are my events. Okay, I start the pipeline. I get the feedback. Okay, does it work for me to move further? If the result is if the result is okay, yes, I move further. Whoop, I get the result of the integration phase of my security pipeline. Does it work? And so on and so on. So I synchronize the pipeline with my CDEvents. So this is the representation of the pipeline. Once more, the purpose is not to go into details. They are just screenshots, but to go into what happens around the different stages. For the development, for example, you remember the entry gate and exit gate I had before. I have exactly the same. I want the user to have gone through the training, so the user who is my project user, which is not the security user necessarily, my project user also has to go through the training because it has to understand what is the feedback of the different scans here. Very important. So the same rules here, either both in my security pipeline and in my main pipeline that will bring the complete application into production. I want to make sure that still I will get the stamp at the end of my process. Some very last slides on the software bill of material. I could not go without talking about bill of material, especially since 12th of May 2021, so a little bit more than 2 years ago. There was an executive order from President Biden on the mandatory bill of material for any software. So there are some articles, one from Ben Higgins, written just after that that executive order, which is quite important. There is also a lot of activity on the social networks, especially one of my friends, Curtis Yanko, is writing a lot of very interesting things on the matter. The typical uses of the BOM, the typical use cases. I can use it for automation, for releasing software. I can use it for compliance. I can use it for impact analysis. I can use it for security. Basically understand the complexity. And for those, it's a little bit of a joke, but for those who know or who remember, Unix was delivered in the 70s with two tools for languages analysis and creation, Lex and Yak. And Yak meant yet another compiler. So you compile your own compiler. And if we want to do some kind of parallel, it's interesting to see that SBOM, it's an artifact that describes the artifact. So it's yet another artifact, yeah. And where did I want to go with the source, the software bill of material? This is my single source of software delivery truth. It's not only GitHub or my version control system, it's everything that describes how the software is released, delivered. It contains my audit report that proves that my software is compliant. So, long story short, last screenshots on what we did before going into production. Make sure that we have the bill of material. We make sure that we have filled any CMDB, if any. Make sure that we have immutability. This is one of the definition of the software bill of material. It has to be immutable. If I prove the compliance and then tomorrow things have changed, there are new vulnerabilities and it's not anymore compliant, I still have the proof of the compliance at the moment I evaluated it. And let's finish, let's conclude by a couple of lessons learned. Just a couple, no, let's take 3 of them, okay? It looks obvious, but basically it's do it, okay? Just do it. Implement DevOps processes, DevOps controls, even with a minimal set of tools, even if they are internal, external. You have invested in the tools, they are working, so implementing DevOps processes will bring you, not probably, it will bring you some return on investment. The second one, which is a corollary, do follow the state of the art, okay? I've not been talking about AI because it's not the purpose, but AI is in the air. AI is here for DevOps and DevSecOps. We're talking about AIOps, by the way. But do follow the state of the art, because if you do not, your competitors will, definitely. And the third one, which is much more positive, when you have some automated controls, some self-embedded controls, that CDEvent mechanism that is working to send the information, to trigger the information, to warn on what happened, it becomes easy that culture and best practices are disseminated within the organization, because it becomes part of the organization. So I've been a little bit longer than expected. I thank you very much for being here. And thank you for your attention, and see you soon. Goodbye.